Hey guys, Keep It Wausome podcast coming at you. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate that. Helps us reach more people. And I want to make a quick shout out to our sponsors, Scotty's Ale House and Eatery, and to Campbell Haynes Menswear. Check out those businesses out. Hey, I got a real special guest, two guests with me today. I think it might be the first time I've had two people on since COVID started. But I have Rebecca Tuley and I have Jahn Martin today. How you guys doing?
Great. Good evening.
We've got them on because we're going to talk about all things mountain biking in the Wausau area, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So, Rebecca, I thought we'd start with you. I understand that you recently purchased the Wausau 24, used to be called the 24 Hours of 9 Mile back in the day.
Mm-hmm. News travels fast.
Yeah. I think we're breaking news on the podcast, aren't we?
Yeah, thank you.
I don't think anyone's written about it yet. Is that right?
That's correct. You're the first to bring it up.
Awesome. Well, tell me all about that. Tell me what goes into the decision, why you wanted to buy it, and what that's going to look like.
Certainly. So Adam Schmidt and Muddy Paws has been running it for the last 10 years. And anybody that's been in events and acted as a race director knows it's a handful and it becomes part of a lifestyle. And Adam and his family they were ready to move on to other things. So Wausau 24 is a local event, and it was very important to me as a Wausau born and bred native to keep that race local. I approached Adam and Adam approached me. It was kind of a mutual thing, and decided it would be a good handoff. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, 2020 didn't happen. That was where the big announcement was going to happen, and the handoff officially.
So the 2020 was going to be the last one that they owned it, and then they were going to announce that you owned it after that.
Correct.
And usually is that early summer or late summer? I can't remember when that runs.
The last full weekend of July.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big race, right? I mean, people come from, I recall at least a few times that I went out there to cover it, I recall there being some pretty big names out there in the mountain biking world.
They come from all over. We have a huge central or a Midwestern following, but we have people that come from as far as California, Oklahoma, North Carolina. They're all over. It's the largest 24-hour endurance mountain bike event in the Midwest.
Yeah. What goes into running something like that? I mean, that's got to be a huge task to take on a race it's like 24 hours long.
Right. And I almost feel like you should ask me that question next year.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole lot more that I know that I'm not going to be able to put into words, but it starts from the time the event ends for next year.
Yeah.
Everything from wrapping up a good race weekend to getting gear put away, getting sponsors and racers thank yous, and then moving on to the following year and securing those sponsors again. Very appreciative to their support. Getting registration open. We open usually in October for the next July.
Wow.
So registration is open for 2021 currently, and registrations are coming in every day. As of, let's see, from a race director standpoint, what else goes into it? There's a lot of behind the scenes, making sure that we have a good course. I have a great course manager that sets that up, takes that down. I have good support from a graphic standpoint that makes sure that the map is out there for the racers, well-marked course. And that's the racing side of things, not to mention the trails that CWAC maintains and builds at 9 Mile. That's the race, that's the ride, and that is definitely a priority. But then what comes next is that feeling, that festival, that community of a whole weekend of events, and that begins as early as Friday with music and food and beer, beverages, and it's a family event. So definitely full families, groups of friends that are out there camping, getting ready to start on Saturday morning with the bike race. We have a trail run that begins on Friday now. And that's been expanded since 2019. And then awards and saying farewell until the next year.
Wow. No, you're no stranger to race directing, right? This isn't your first rodeo. I think you've done a few races, right?
Not a few. I'm more on events. I've helped run the youth ride program for Seawalk over the last couple of years, as well as started the women's mountain bike weekend for Seawalk a few years ago. And that's been a huge success every year. We were even blessed this last summer to have a small event with small groups, socially distanced, and phenomenal feedback from those participants. Already planning for next year's on that. And then Seawalk has the Wausau Winter Triathlon that will be held at the end of January. That event is something that I brought back as an idea to Wausau after participating in another local race that is no longer happening, unfortunately. And 9 Mile is the perfect venue for a winter triathlon, already having phenomenal snowshoeing and skiing, and having the infrastructure of the bike trails, just hoping to get some more fat biking out there. But for this one event, we are given permission to have fat bikes at 9 Mile.
Nice. Is that going to be part of any organization? Is that going to be part of the Badger State Games or anything like that? Or is that totally separate?
Not this year. It's going to be completely run under Seawalk.
Gotcha. Hey, I want to take a step back a little bit, and maybe you guys can both talk a little bit about how you guys got into mountain biking.
Dan should go first.
You know what? I'm one of those guys that have never lost his love for the bike. I biked all through my youth and into my college years, and went out to California for a short time. And I got on an airplane in 1987, flew to Burbank, and thought that I would never see a Wisconsin winter again. And I lasted about a year in Burbank, California, came back in 1989, and bought my first mountain bike down in Stevens Point and started riding Standing Rocks at 9 Mile.
Is that at the hustle shop?
Actually, Campus Cycle.
That's a good one too.
My first mountain bike. And so 30 plus years, really cut my teeth on the sport at 9 Mile and Standing Rocks. And it's been really a privilege to watch the evolution of the sport, especially at 9 Mile over 3 decades, and what we have come from since the late 80s.
Oh, definitely. How about you, Rebecca?
I'm a little younger to the sport, we'll say, to the sport. Although I was a cyclist in high school and college, it was mostly for commuting. Even the mountain bike back in college days was just for commuting, and the biggest jumps I would ever do was off the curb. And then in, about 6 years ago, I hit a new fitness level in my life and started biking again at a more competitive level. Got into triathlons, and one of the triathlons that I stood up, actually 2 of the triathlons I signed up for that year, they were both off-road. And at that point I thought, oh, how hard could this be? And lo and behold, after participating in my first Wolfman, I realized I had a lot to learn about mountain biking, and started, that's kind of how the women's weekend came about, because I realized we did not have the education for beginning bikers, mountain bikers in the area. And from there, I fell in love with the sport and have been doing more mountain biking than off-road triathlons recently, but still love all my bikes.
Yeah, funny thing is, when I moved back to Wausau from Stevens Point, I felt like Point was really good for road riding. There was all these I mean, 5 minutes out of this, 5 minutes away from like the city center, and you're in like these backcountry roads where there's hardly any traffic. The pavement's nice, and you can just ride and ride and ride. I
Yeah.
find like here it's really hard to get away from traffic, and there's all this mountain biking infrastructure. So I think it took about 6 months before I was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to start mountain biking more. And I was always doing both, but I felt like I was doing more road riding than mountain biking. And I would go out to Standing Rocks every once in a while, but it was so convenient to just like leave, my apartment and go ride. And then around here, it's like it's much more convenient to go mountain biking. So I found that's kind of brought me back to made it like my main cycling activity that's not commuting.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And Rebecca has been a part of this, and I'm a member of the Wausau Wheelers, and we ride in the summer from the Weston YMCA. So I know, once you get on the fringe of our community, the road riding is, I think, phenomenal. Whether you want rolling hills or, punchy climbs, we've just got a tremendous bike community here in Wausau in Marathon County.
Yeah, and by the way, the curbs are still the only distance I want to jump off of. Just keep that clear.
Yeah.
Man, I've gone, to Sylvan Hill a couple times, and every time I see that 20-foot jump, my stomach drops. I'm like, oh my God, I still can't believe people jump over that thing. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Not
well,
me.
it's funny, and a testament to Seawalk, I left, I moved to Stevens Point in 2010 after, oddly, interesting enough, after graduating from Point, I finally moved to Point. And then I came back, and all of a sudden, like, the mountain biking was really awesome. So you guys really like kicked it into gear. Like in those years I was gone, I came back in the end of 2014, and like, yeah, I tried out I'm like, hey, this isn't the 9 mile I remember, which is great.
Yeah.
I used to get lost at 9 mile all the time, and now there's this nice like loop I can follow, and now Ringle too. Ringle's great, but yeah, maybe you guys could sum up a little bit all the work that Seawalk has done so far. You don't have to go into tremendous detail, but I mean, you guys have done a lot to make mountain biking a real thing in Wausau.
Yeah, I can give you kind of the quick recap of our history and what's happened here in the last 8 years. But we formed in February of 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, all we really had for a trail system was 9 mile, which was a great old school single track system. Not really well marked, a lot of rabbit trails that dead end into ski trails. And we had some of our folks down riding the Big Old Plain down west of Mosinee.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of 8 years, we've cleaned up 9 mile. We went in there in 2014 and did a pretty extensive project where we made it a closed loop system. So now it's basically 3 loops, all signed, all mapped, much more rider friendly. We're slowly working the Big Old Plain. We've done some mapping and some trail improvements down there.
Yeah, I want to stop and touch on that too, because it seems like there used to be this old system of building trails, and not just for mountain biking, but for just in general of like, well, just kind of randomly throw them out this way and that way or whatever. And it seems like the new system is to make these closed loops, like you said. It seems a lot more user friendly.
Yeah, the phrase that we use is purpose-built mountain biking or bike optimized trails. So rather than just a handful of people going out into the woods with rakes and shovels and doing this rake and ride, which, I mean, that's the school that I came from. I came from the old school rake and ride. I love it. I still ride it today. It's definitely part of my primary menu of riding, but at the same time, boy, do I love the bike optimized flow trail that is planned and it's environmentally sustainable and really adds so much texture to the bike community. So kind of going through the menu of trail systems, the Big Old Plain 9 mile. In 2017, we migrated the Big Old Plain into our portfolio of trails. We opened Sylvan shortly thereafter, and then last year, obviously we added Ringle.
Yeah.
So today, over the course of 8 years, Seawalk manages somewhere between 65 and 70 miles of dirt over 6 trailheads. We interact with 4 different land managers, and I believe we are probably the second largest chapter in the state in terms of mileage behind our friends up in CAMBA, the Chequamegon Area Mountain Bike Association.
Wow, I had no idea. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and then we groom probably between 30 and 35 miles of that for snow riding in the winter. So,
Oh, yeah.
So when we formed Seawalk back in 2012, and one of our marketing footnotes, not a footnote, but one of our primary objectives was to become a ride center.
Yeah.
As designated by the International Mountain Bike Association, which we are a local chapter.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about that too, because one of the aspects that I wanted to talk about was how important these local partnerships are with, like, say, the city when it comes to Sylvan Hill, and work with like Marathon County, like, and the Ice Age Trail folks when it came to building Ringle. And I know one of the things that you guys talked about a lot about was the IMBA system and the IMBA Ride Center potential that was there too. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and like what it was suspended for a little while, and is it back? What's going on with that basically?
Yeah, IMBA's gone through a lot of changes here in the last 2 or 3 years. They lost one of their major sponsors in Subaru, in which resulted in them downsizing quite a bit in some of their staff, which trickled down to the chapters. So, we had a regional representative that was our support. We lost that. And, a lot of the clubs around the nation were kind of just falling away. And, we decided as a group that it was really important to be a part of a national voice, that the advocacy of our sport collectively was important, and we wanted to be a part of that IMBA voice. So we decided to really kind of hang on with IMBA and ride the waves. And honestly, personally, I was part of the leadership that guided through that. And I think it has paid its rewards. They've made some changes that have been beneficial to the local chapters financially and structurally. So I'm glad we stayed on board, because I think they're a pretty vital voice for our sport. And I said nationally and really internationally.
Yeah.
In terms of the ride center, still a viable option. I think there are only 1 or 2 ride centers in the state. Again, our friends CAMBA up in the Hayward Cable area are a ride center. But I think Matt Block, who's a pretty key person in our development, Mac, I think was our inaugural president of Seawalk, and I guess I call him Dr. of Dirt. He kind of leads all of our trail development activity. And I know that we have a Dr. of Dirt. So I know that he has the initial template filled out to submit to IMBA to become a ride center. So I would expect maybe some future movement on that in 2021, especially as you look to Rib Mountain and what's going on with the state park.
Yeah, so it's back. So the ride center program is back on then.
Well, the ride center program never went away.
Oh, it didn't. I thought it suspended it.
No, it was always there.
We did not take applications for a while or something. I thought there was something.
You're correct. They did suspend.
I guess that's more of what I meant. But yeah, I mean, it didn't go away. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, it's still a viable program. It's if you're designated a ride center, it's a tremendous flag to fly to really promote your area, your organization. And I can tell you, just looking at the preliminary application, there's 3 levels of ride center. There's bronze, silver, and gold. And they all vary based on mileage, amenities, lift assisted downhill. And looking at the application, we for sure qualify for bronze. possibly silver.
Oh, nice.
And as we look ahead to the future, you know, whatever happens with Rib Mountain, and if we get lift assisted downhill at Granite Peak, then we would be gold. But again, that's a few years down the road.
Right. And the ride center, that's super important, because the idea here is like, this is sort of a tourism draw that's going to get more people from out of the area coming in, which is what we're all about here in the Wausau area. So.
Yeah, and I tell you, and Rebecca can attest to this, but like even the simple fact of bringing Ringo online, in the amount of people we're drawing from Shawano and Green Bay and the Fox Valley, it's amazing.
I think we started seeing that draw even with Sylvan, and then it just exploded even more with Ringo.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I love Ringo.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's like perfect for my ability level. So it's awesome. I have a lot of friends. Whenever my friends come to town, we'll go out there. It's a great place. So, but that's a great way to segue to the new stuff that's going on. So now we're going to break some more news here.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
Tell me what's on the horizon. I know you got some stuff pulled up to talk about.
Yeah, well, so for 2021, let's back up. So 2020, we did a pretty extensive like retooling out at 9 Mile on what we call our East Loop and our West Loop. And we hired one of our longtime volunteers, Nick Wiersba, who has just really done a fantastic job and has migrated through the sport, through the industry, and now has started his own company called Epic Trail Designs LLC. So he's actually a contractor, and he was hired by Marathon County Parks and Rec to do that development out at 9 Mile. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, the feedback we got from everyone from Seawalk Youth Ride to our local high school NICA team to just general people traveling through the area and the local riders has just been outstanding. So about 70% of that is done. So in 2021, we're going to move to our South Loop, which is our more advanced Black Diamond Loop. So people that have been around 9 Mile for a while, it's Stinger and Ho Chi Minh and Flower. So all of the real rocky technical gardens.
Yep, I remember Ho Chi Minh. That's why I haven't been back out there.
It's a fantastic trail.
Stick to that other loop.
So really, we're really not changing the personality of our Black Loop. It's still going to be a really rugged, rake and ride, old school experience. You really got to bring your A game.
Yeah.
It's not for a new rider. We're not going to go in there and dumb down that trail and turn it into flow. Mm-hmm. Pretty much what we're doing in there is pretty much driven by environmental issues, some drainage, some sustainability issues. And then there are certain areas where, you go off trail 10, 12, 15 feet, and there's these fabulous rock structures. So for those of you who are familiar with Ho Chi Minh, like way down in the valley in the low end of that trail, we're going to do some rerouting in there and bring that trail up out of the valley where we've had some drainage issues, and we're going to utilize some rock features in there and redesign that and make it a slightly different experience, but still very much in line with that rugged old school personality of our South Loop. So super excited.
Nice
to see what happens in 2021.
Cool. And I think you had some other things pulled up there, some other goodies for us.
Yeah, and I can share our screen and show you some of this if you wish.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we're going to do a little experimentation here on Zoom.
Brian,
yeah.
While Jan's pulling that up, you just need a good coach or guide to take you out there to be able to master that trail.
Well, I was going to tell you, I think part of the reason I was riding with Mark Parman and his wife, and I don't know if you know them, but they're hardcore.
I do.
So
yeah, Susan's a good friend.
Yeah, they were out for a joyride and I was like melting over my handlebars trying to keep up with them. So that might be part of the experience. You know, it's always different if you ride at your own pace or you try to keep up with someone who's just light years ahead of you.
So we can talk about, we'll go to Sylvan next, and just an FYI, Brian, it says my host has disabled screen sharing.
Oh,
So
hold on.
if you can
not
figure out how to turn that
There
on.
you go. It's on now.
And while you do that, I'm going to have a little sip of whiskey, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, I got to stay hydrated. So let's move over to Sylvan. So you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. So everything that's shaded is existing. So over here, if you can follow my mouse, this is the old Sylvan Loop around the perimeter and the return trail. And then this is Twisted Oak, and here's Bad Rabbit. So really need to credit this trail design to Matt Block, who's on our board of directors. He just does a tremendous job with analyzing topography and elevation and soil and making this happen. And then Gary Barden from Gary Barden Design kind of puts this, all of the graphics together and makes it look good. So we presented this to the Marathon County Parks and Rec Department this past fall, went through all of their processes. It's been approved. So we have the green light to go ahead and build there. So basically what we're doing, a couple of things, is we're going to take that current return trail, which is this, if you can follow this along my blue line.
Yep.
And we're going to reroute that, and we're going to actually make that a downhill trail.
Oh.
And then what you see in pink is now going to be the new return trail. Nice. Where we're actually going to cross the service road and make this a little bit easier to climb. So for anyone who's had experience at Sylvan, you know that like the last 100 yards at Sylvan was a little bit of a punch in the teeth. It got kind of steep. So we're going to soften up that climb as you come back to the top side of the elevation. Then right here where you see the number 3, we're going to put in a little dirt jump zone. So we're going to put in about 3 different jump lines there, anywhere between 350 and 400 feet of people to practice their jumping skills. And then this item number 2 is going to be skills area. So we have today we have a really small, very basic skills area. We're going to almost quadruple that and add more bridges, more stonework, more obstacles for people to progress through their skill development. Then what I am personally super excited about is over here between Twisted Oak, which is this guy here. I'm sorry, Fishhook. This is Fishhook right here. And the Sylvan Loop. We're going to put in another downhill line. And we're going to call it kind of a rock tech. So nothing super crazy like Fishhook where you're going off 20-foot gaps like you mentioned earlier, Brian, but more downhill drops, some small gaps, more techie. And then these little red lines here are going to be more advanced lines for your hotshot riders. So the price tag on this phase 2 is about $65,000. We're actually going to break this down over 3 years. Gotcha. So next year, and I should back up. So part of this plan is we need to do some maintenance. It's amazing, you know, over the course of 4 years, what happens with erosion and seasonal changes and how it degrades the trail. So we have to go in and do some basic maintenance on some of the existing trails. And then in 2021, we're going to do, I believe that the return trail is on the docket for 2021. So Aaron Ruff, who's our current president and our primary grant writer, we'll be going out yet this off season and begin, writing grant requests to fund this project. So super excited to see what happens here in 2021.
Wow, that's awesome. Can't wait to see that all come about.
And then, we backing up, we talked a little bit about 9 Mile to show you this. So this is our South Loop right here. So this is Flower, where my mouse is. Here's Stinger. We're not touching Stinger at all.
Oh, okay.
And then where you see 22, if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
This is all Ho Chi Minh. So anything where you see a number and an arrow, that's just simply where we're doing some maintenance and rerouting.
Oh, those little arrows are where I fell down and broke something, right?
Yeah, in fact, right, let me see here. This is Stinger right about here. That's where I fell down and opened up my leg and got 14 stitches on a Wausau 24 ride.
Wow.
So, hey, part of the sport.
It is part of it. I always tell people, like with road riding, you might fall. With mountain biking, you are going to fall. It's just a matter of time. And
then the other thing I want to talk about is Underdown.
Yeah.
So Chris Schatz is our primary trail boss up there. Just does a fantastic job.
Yeah, I know. I've spoken with Chris before.
Yeah, I mean, just the countless hours that he puts in there, and he's got a small team of regional people that help him out. Mm-hmm. And then we engaged Gary Barden from Gary Barden Design and our board of directors to do new signs and new kiosks up at the Underdown. So you're going to be seeing these signs are actually currently in Chris's garage, ready to be installed next spring. So, so if you back up in the day, the Underdown used to be a trail it used to be the alphabet. You had to go up and bike alphabet soup. You'd start on Trail Z and then you'd go to A, and it was kind of weird, but
yeah.
They've really simplified this. So this is the legacy trailhead up here on Copper Lake Road. And everything is now going to be mapped and signed, all new names. So this is called Main Course, the Homestead, the Hollow, and then, the favorite of Oktoberfest, which has got some really serious elevation in it. Bring your lungs and your legs when you're going to ride that. And then Chris and a pretty big volunteer crew put in a new boardwalk and new trail system around Underdown Lake right here in the middle, down here. And then in this trail in blue, this is the disconnector and the connector, super fun. And as we go down south, we've got the Prairie Dells, which you don't see it on this map, but the Prairie River runs right down through here. So super scenic. So up at the Underdown, we have almost 30 miles of a really just a ruggedly beautiful backcountry mountain bike experience.
Yeah, the funny thing is I haven't been out there I haven't mountain biked out there since I was in my 20s, which was longer ago than I would care to admit. But I remember there was some sections where you would come around at like a turn and it'd be like a really sharp turn, and then there was maybe like, I don't know, like 3 feet of trail, and then it just like dropped off into God knows where.
Yep. And some of that's been cleaned up and made a little bit more rider friendly. Chris has been in there with the Mini X doing some trail development, but make no mistake, Underdown is still a ride for your intermediate and advanced riders.
Oh yeah.
If you want to lose a friendship, bring a new rider to the Underdown and
yeah, for sure, man. Well, it's a great place to ski too. I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of somewhere else. Yeah, it's Underdown, right? They have skiing.
Yep, they got skiing, and there's a pretty significant equestrian presence up there. So you'll see some horses up there as well.
So what about Rib Mountain? So I know that I believe they told me that someone told me that the planning is kind of on hold for the moment with COVID and all that, but maybe you can talk a little bit about what Seawalk's hoping happens out there when the planning does kick in, and so forth?
Yeah, I almost wish Matt Block was on the call for this. So things were kind of on pause for a while as we were kind of waiting to see what happened with COVID. I'm excited to know that things are kind of ramping back up to the front burner.
Oh, good.
I've seen some communications here from the Chamber of Commerce, from the DNR, and then I've heard recently here that IMBA and Trail Solutions have been engaged to help assist with the mountain bike end of things. So part of that CWalk is submitting our preliminary application for a ride center, just so IMBA and the DNR and the Chamber of Commerce knows what mountain biking brings to the community in terms of trails and amenities, coffee shops, brew pubs, retail, bike shops. So we're doing that inventory as we speak. That'll be submitted here probably in the next couple of weeks. Again, referring to Matt Block, Matt has done a preliminary trail design up on Rid Mountain. So it includes some downhill trails over on, I guess, what I'll call the east side, away from the ski hill, and then basically a perimeter cross-country loop. And everything that I'm talking about is really independent of what's happening with Charles Skinner and Granite Peak and the ski hill. So what we've submitted can happen regardless of what happens with Granite Peak and their expansion with the ski hill. Now, if they move forward, they get their expansion, then that opens up a whole another door for us to have a secondary conversation with lift assisted downhill mountain biking.
Yeah, because for folks that don't know, basically the Granite Peak had these expansion plans that, I mean, I think they announced them back when I moved back to Wausau in 2014. I think it was one of the first stories I covered. And there was a lot of delays, a lot of questions. I know people were kind of upset with they felt like maybe some of the trails were being impeded upon, and there was other issues with the more traffic and the water and whatnot. So anyway, the long story short is it all kind of went back to the DNR kind of decided to go back to the drawing board and look at all the recreational uses, including skiing. So it's not just, well, we can expand, but it's like, okay, what can this, if we're going to redesign the master plan for the park, let's talk to every user group we can and find out, like, what can we really do with this park, including Granite Peak. And yeah, mountain biking is probably going to be a huge part of that, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that's a general rule of thumb, is that when they look at a master plan for a state park, I mean, lawfully, I think they have to look at all the user groups.
Yeah.
So birding, hiking, skiing, snowshoeing, mountain biking, hunting, whatever is affected within that state park has to be examined.
Yeah, because originally they were trying to amend the plan, and I think the idea is, well, let's just go back and do a whole new plan if we're going to have obviously there's all these potential for all these different user groups to participate. It's, instead of just amending the plan, it's probably been a while, why don't we just do a new plan? And I think that probably makes a lot of sense. So is it your sense that, are they still taking input for that, or is it kind of like, are we in a different phase of that? I don't know if you even know that.
Again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but my sense is that the window for public input is closed. Gotcha. And now they are leaning on all of their consultants to present a plan to the DNR. So I would expect that we are going to see something sometime in the first quarter of 21. I know that the Chamber of Commerce is involved, and I know that they are looking at a group called the SE Group that does development for ski villages and mountain biking and tourism areas all over the nation. And I got to tell you, their portfolio of work is really impressive.
Nice.
So I don't know if when you post this, if you have links for people to check out, but go out and Google SE Group and look at their portfolio, and you'll be impressed.
Nice. Well, I mean, it sounds like there's just a lot of great things going on with mountain biking, and CWalk is a super big part of that. And You know, Rebecca, you're going to be a big part of that too with running the Wausau 24. Are you keeping the name the same? Is that what it's going to be called?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Same. We're keeping the original grassroots feel to the event. So
Awesome. Awesome. Anything else that you guys want to say about mountain biking in the community?
I'll let Rebecca go first.
it's growing. As I know this year, and I'm sure COVID had something to do with it, we saw tons and tons of new riders out on the trails. And the one thing that I love about the community is it's so open and welcoming and willing to help each other out and have a good time. It's definitely a growing sport still. And one of the reasons why I love it. I think if anybody were to want more information regarding any of this stuff, they can visit our website at cwocc.org. And most of our events are posted on there. Depends, I know like the youth ride and the women's weekend usually get posted in the spring. And yeah, I think if you haven't tried it yet, definitely get out and try it. And if you don't know, find a friend or a bike shop or a local coach that's willing to take you out.
Awesome. Anything from you, Jahn?
Well, I guess the other thing that I'd like to say in closing is just a huge shout out and thank you to our volunteers and our members. So we are 100% volunteer. We're governed by a 12-member board of directors. And from fundraising to trail development to event planning, I mean, anything that you see come out of Seawalk is all volunteer. And, you know, I've just mentioned a few names on this call, but there are dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of individuals that have contributed to the success of Seawalk over the past 8 years. Mm-hmm. So it's like I said, I'm an old school guy. I've been around for a while, and to see what's happened in the last 8 years at 9 Mile and all of our corresponding trailheads is really amazing. And
it is amazing. Yeah.
And you know, I get the privilege of knowing what's going to come in the future, and I'm like, gosh, if we've done this in 8 years, in another 8 years. And there's trail systems that we haven't even talked about on this call yet, Brian, that we're looking at moving dirt, and so much opportunity in the future, which I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. Well, hey, I agree with that. Like I said, I left town in 2010 and I came back in the end of 2014. All of a sudden there was all this cool stuff going on with mountain biking. So testament to you guys. It's amazing how much you've gotten done in eight short years. It's really incredible. I mean, the amount of trails. So I'm enjoying them. I think a lot of people around town are, and that's great. So thanks to all of you guys for the efforts that you do. I think it's gone a long ways to making this place a cool place to be. So, well, hey, listen, I always end my calls with saying, keep it Wausome to my guests, and they say it back to me. So keep it Wausome, guys.
Keep it Wausome.
Keep it Wausome.
All right. You guys out there, keep it Wausome too, and we'll see you next time.